Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson runs away from another press conference. We have record debt and Ro Khanna has record earnings. Let's pull at DSA and confiscate everything. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
My father-in-law called me this morning, and he had seen the story on Fox News of our new friend Matt Calkins from formerly of the Seattle Times. He's the sports columnist who, unless you've been living under a rock, you now know who he is. The Seattle Times spiked his column because he had the gall, he had the audacity to say, hey, maybe girls' sports should be for girls, and maybe boys shouldn't be in girls' sports, to present it through the lens of some teenage girls who lost championships and were forced to play against, share locker rooms with boys. How dare he? The Seattle Times spiked that article, and it was one of a few articles that the Seattle Times had spiked for Matt Calkins, and he decided to walk away from the Seattle Times. Well, this has gone mega viral. Last time I checked, his resignation note on X, the announcement, had 100,000 likes, had been retweeted by basically everybody at this point. And he was doing the TV circuit. So he was on Fox News with Trace Gallagher earlier, and my father-in-law saw it. And he called me to remind me of a story. A few years ago, my father-in-law canceled his subscription to the Seattle Times after having it for over 40 years. His parents had it until the day they died. He was tired of its bias and hit his breaking point when the paper took the side of Hamas after the October 7th massacre. About a month later, someone from the Times called him and asked him about reactivating his subscription. He politely said no and explained that the paper had long ago forgotten its job was the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and that opinions were for the editorial section. The woman from the Times who called my father-in-law said, "You sound like my father." My father-in-law replied that her father sounded like a smart man, adding that the Seattle Times had basically just become a clearinghouse for reprints of articles from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, saying that if he wanted to read those papers, he would subscribe to them. What's the point in subscribing to the Seattle Times if they're just reprinting everybody else's stuff? I haven't looked at today's Seattle Times because what's the point? I assume if you open up the front section of today's Seattle Times, there will be in the first 2 to 3 pages at least one article from AP, at least one article from the New York Times, at least one article from the Associated Press, and at least one article from the Washington Post. Why bother paying for that? You can go on those other websites for free. She replied when he said he didn't want to subscribe anymore, "Don't you want to hear the other side?" That's when he ended the call, because that's exactly the problem. The Seattle Times wants to force its agenda on its readers, and as we know, will not print anything that opposes it. Apparently, this has trickled down to the subscription callers, because when even they say, "Don't you want to hear the other side?" No. In a newsroom, you can present both sides, but that means you have to present both sides. Why would you subscribe to an outlet that says you're wrong all the time? It reminds me of an old Jewish joke where these two Jewish old men see a friend of theirs, another Jewish old man sitting on a bench, and he's reading Der Stürmer, the Nazi magazine. And they say, "Why are you reading this?" And he goes, "Well, the news is always so bad. But according to this, we own the banks, we run the movies, we run the media, we control the weather. It's all good news. It's all good news." Why would you want a paper that constantly tells you you're wrong without ever saying you have a point? Here's something. You want to put them side by side? Fine. And that's what the Wall Street Journal does. The Wall Street Journal has counterpoint. The Wall Street Journal has opinions I agree with, opinions I disagree with. But to just subscribe to something because it disagrees with me all the time, that's crazy.
You know, using that logic, we should be killing it right now. This station should be number one in the market because you'd think all of Seattle would like to hear what they normally don't hear or
exactly.
what the other side is saying.
Exactly right. You think all the people in Seattle will go, I'm going to listen to Seattle's conservative talk radio station, right? That would make the most amount of sense.
So using their logic, man, we should be huge. Maybe we should tell that to people who are like, oh, I'm not conservative. I don't listen to your station.
Don't you want to hear the other side? Brilliant, Kevin. Absolutely brilliant. Now, here's something else. I am not opposed to hearing the other side. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are the other side, but that's because I'm preparing to argue with other people, and I want to hear what the other arguments are so I can refine my own position. But if I just want to enjoy the news, I'm going to turn on what I want to listen to.
Also, you're the only game in town, Seattle Times.
Yes.
So how do I get the other side news-wise?
Exactly. Well, here's something else. You remember, Kevin, and we discussed this a bit yesterday. There used to be the Seattle Times and there was the PI, right? The PI was seen as the more lefty version and the Seattle Times was seen as the more righty version.
Yep.
So when the PI folded, Seattle Times should have said, we're going to keep doing what we're doing because we are still afloat and we are still successful. Instead, they said, let's hire a bunch of them people from the PI. And you know what? The Stranger's having problems too. Let's hire a bunch of them because there's this underserved market. Now, it'd be one thing if you hired a bunch of people to serve an underserved market, but you did it at the expense of what was there before. And let's be real. The Seattle Times wasn't exactly conservative before. It was just more conservative. So you have now gone down the same road as the failed PI, as the failing Stranger, which had to get bought 2 or 3 times by somebody else to save the thing. And now you're in trouble too. And here's something else, by the way. The Seattle Times, by only printing the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Associated Press, yeah, I know they have some local stuff, but by printing those things as the majority of the newspaper, what do I need you for? I rarely ever check the Seattle Times website to see what they have going on. I get most of my news that's happening locally from sites like Como, from sites like the Center Square. You know where else I get it from? My own reporting. Because when the Seattle Times isn't covering issues that are important to the people in Seattle, in King County, in Washington, people go elsewhere to find their news. And in this day and age, when you could choose any show, when you could choose any podcast, thank you for choosing us, why would you choose the one to hear the other side? Media is getting more and more siloed, where if you want to be a far left, Hamas supporting, saying America deserves 9/11, Hassan Piker's Twitch stream is there for you. You can go there. If you want to find somebody who makes me look like a liberal, those podcasts exist. They exist in this world. You can go find them. And a lot of people don't want to hear the other side. But what's worse than that is the Seattle Times isn't doing the journalism that we need around here. Here's an example. So the other day, our friend Andrea Suarez was hit with a labor and industries complaint. We spoke about this on the show. Labor and industries, somebody reported her and said they are not following guidelines for removal of needles and homeless waste when they go out in parks. First of all, if you've been on one of Andrea Suarez's picks, as she calls them, they have protective gear, they have those grabber thingies, they do everything right, and they've never had an issue. Now, what's interesting about this is Andrea is very effective. Andrea is a volunteer. Andrea has a volunteer organization. She doesn't have any employees. How come nobody has ever investigated Plymouth Housing from the Seattle Times? We've seen the videos out of Plymouth Housing. It is a disaster area. A disaster area. Jonathan Cho and Andrea have been ringing the bells of alarm on Plymouth Housing. I have never seen anything out of the Seattle Times on Plymouth Housing. except for, and I did a little searching on this last night, except for we need to vote yes for this levy so we can fund more programs like Plymouth Housing. Then there's their Project Homeless, which is paid for a lot of the donors of Plymouth Housing. So doesn't that mean that the Seattle Times is taking undeclared campaign contributions to fund pet projects of people who want to continue the homeless grift going? Here's something else. Have you seen the videos that Andrea and Cho and others have put out from Homeless Inc., from Plymouth Housing, of how disgusting those places are? Andrea told me that she has had a whole bunch of people come forward that want to talk about the deplorable conditions inside of Plymouth Housing. So you know what I did 2 nights ago? I filed an L&I complaint against Plymouth Housing with the Labor and Industries. These guys want to play this game? Let's play this game. Why is the Seattle Times never investigated Plymouth Housing? They are the #1 source of 911 calls any of the homeless facilities they have. I've never seen a single investigative report from the Seattle Times about Plymouth Housing. None. Zero zilch. And they have a whole division, Project Homeless. Turns out Project Homeless is really just designed so that these muckety-mucks can pay for this thing, so that they can convince you, if only we had more money, we would be able to clear everything up. Now vote for more money. And that's what they've been doing. So something else I'm working on right now is a PDC complaint, Public Disclosure Commission complaint, because that's basically what they did to Brandy Cruz and Let's Go Washington by saying, oh, well, because Brandy gives her opinion about Let's Go Washington, that's an undeclared campaign contribution. So the Seattle Times, I think I actually make a way better case than the people who filed it against Brandy Cruz and Let's Go Washington. So because the Seattle Times is really just a mouthpiece for these guys to raise your taxes so that way they can fund Homeless Inc., I think that's way worse. Because because in that case, we actually have the paper trail of the Seattle Times Project Homeless being paid for by these guys, as opposed to the PDC complaint filed against Brandy Cruz and Let's Go Washington, which says Brandy's getting money from Let's Go Washington, which they have no evidence of. None whatsoever. In fact, this is the same claim the Washington Capital Correspondents Association made about me. Ari's getting paid by Let's Go Washington. I have never gotten a dime from Let's Go Washington. I go and I speak at their events because I agree with what they are fighting for. Repealing the income tax, defending, protecting girls' sports, defending, protecting parental rights. What is controversial about any of that? Oh, shock, shock. The conservative commentator is against taxes. Oh, shock, shock. The conservative commentator is pro-traditional family values. And yet they come after us for this. And I've never heard the Seattle Times speak out for anybody like me having a press pass. In fact, quite the opposite. They're part of the Washington Capital Correspondents Association, and they're trying to make sure that me, Brandy, and Jonathan Cho don't have press passes. But meanwhile, who's the only one doing investigations into Plymouth Housing and the deplorable conditions inside? Jonathan Cho, the guy who goes in there with flip-flops. That guy. Andrea Suarez, the volunteer of the homeless organization. The Seattle Times made themselves irrelevant because in the process of living inside their own echo chamber and not wanting anything that challenges it, not only did they alienate their audience, but they stopped doing journalism. Because a real journalist will look at Seattle and it'll say, this place is a disaster. What's causing it? Have you seen a single article in the Seattle Times? World Cup's over. Homeless is back now, and it's back with a vengeance, and it's worse than it was before. Hey, now that the World Cup's over, why are there so many empty storefronts in downtown Seattle? Hey, you know all those posters they put over the empty storefronts? Who paid for all that? Where'd all that money come from? for the World Cup because those posters are still up and those stores are still empty. Who paid for all those Welcome to Seattle posters to hide the fact that the stores were empty for all the tourists that came here? Why is Seattle Times never actually investigated if Plymouth Housing gets gajillions of dollars? Why are the conditions inside so deplorable? Why are they so bad? It's not just that they became an echo chamber. It's that they made themselves irrelevant. And why would you want to subscribe to them anymore? Some people say, I want it for the crosswords. Some people say they want it because, they just want to know what's happening locally. There are better resources out there. Do you know that for the last 2 weeks, I have beaten the Seattle Times on almost every major story they put out by at least a week? Every single one on this show. Every single major story. During the Bite of Seattle, I had everything days before they had it. I had it before most of the newsroom had it. And this isn't a thing to say, listen more to the Ari Hoffman show. You're already doing that. I should be commenting on things. I should be talking about my thoughts on things, which I do all the time. I spend most of my nights researching these stories because most of the media around here isn't doing their jobs. The fact that I can name the media around here who's doing their jobs on one hand shows you how bad it actually is. So the Seattle Times pitch of don't you want to hear the other side? It's not just I don't want to hear the other side. It's more so, can you give me the information about what's going on? Because I don't hear anything useful out of you guys. Spiking Matt Calkins' column on protecting girls' sports was a dumb business decision. It is the biggest story in sports right now. It has political crossover, and it continues every single week because every week the Indiana Fever have another game against somebody else, and there's going to be another protest, and it all started right here in Seattle. It started right here, and you can follow it across the country. This is a story that keeps going. And if you want to bring in the other side, bring in the other side and put it right next to Matt Calkins' article, and you can have a side-by-side. So then both sides will say, see, they're validating me. It's so validating. I feel seen. I'll keep my Seattle Times subscription for another week. But because they spiked his article, because they're so ideologically captured, they missed out not only on the clicks, but they missed out on realizing there's another point of view out there. And they're not even covering this story because it's what? Too dangerous for them? You're going to see, guaranteed, that what's going to happen is the Seattle Times editorial board is doing their endorsements right now for the November election. The Seattle Times, don't forget, went down to Olympia last year to testify about how they want taxpayer money to fund their failing newspaper. They are advocating for that. They are literally biased by pitching that because the very thing they claim I'm doing, they are doing. They're advocating for policy. They're advocating for the taxpayer dollars to go to them. Do you want your taxpayer dollars going to the Seattle Times? You shouldn't want your regular dollars going to the Seattle Times or your taxpayer dollars. But that is what they are advocating for. So because the government wants the income tax, you're going to see vote no on the repeal because it's just going to millionaires. You're going to see vote against protecting girls' sports because trans rights are human rights. Never mind the girls who are losing out on championships and getting injured or sexually assaulted by boys pretending to be girls. And what about parental rights? With that one, the Seattle Times might say vote yes to protect parental rights just because they want to throw us a bone. And so that people will say they're conservative. I wonder how my predictions are going to shake out. But no, Seattle Times, I don't want to hear the other side. You know why? All I hear all day long from you guys is the other side, and I never actually get the news. You guys did this to yourselves, and you've lost people who are subscribers for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You did this to yourselves. You made yourselves irrelevant. But not just that. What a bad business decision. What a terrible business decision to give up on the biggest story in sports with political crossover that started right here in Seattle. Speaking of things right here in Seattle, our socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, ran away from the press again while doing a lousy impression of the Village People. We'll have that insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We got a lot of texts on the last segment, but this one from Jason and Lacey is stellar. They say the fact that the Seattle Times refers to themselves as the other side indicates that they are biased. It's admitting it. Exactly right, Jason. Couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly right. We have other listeners talking about all the different shows they saw Matt Calkins on. Just remember, my friends, we had him yesterday. Maybe we should do a segment where we check in with Matt once a week about what's going on in sports and just get his thoughts on life. That could be a lot of fun, as a matter of fact, because I don't know the sports ball so well. Sure, I know what basketball is. I've played basketball. I know what football is, and I played football. The only sport I really follow close enough is baseball. That could be fun. If you think we should do that, give us a text. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Okay, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson had another bad interview yesterday, and Chris Daniels is right there for all of it from Como News, their senior reporter. So let me set the scene for you, because we don't have video here. We've got audio, so I got to describe it to you. They're talking about how Katie Wilson signed this new thing to speed up housing, And let's be real, it's not going to speed up housing. It's just whatever. It's a mess. It's performative. So she's trying to milk this thing for all she possibly can to distract from the bite of Seattle shooting. But her mistake was, well, if you want to have a press conference, the press is actually going to show up. And if the press is going to show up, you're going to get asked about the bite of Seattle shooting because we still don't have answers. What's today's date? The 21st? Okay, 4 days from now. No, this Sunday. This Sunday is exactly a month after the bite of Seattle shooting. There are at least 2 suspects on the loose. We still don't have a description of either one of them. 2 suspects a month afterwards. We don't know more than we did that night when the press conference was delayed. So, of course, she's going to get asked questions about this. And you've had multiple shootings since then. And you've had multiple problems since then. And her poll ratings are an absolute disaster. The best poll rating she has is a 37% approval rating. The worst one she has is a 22% approval rating. She is screwed. So she's trying to get past it. Look, I'm giving you more housing. Look at the more housing I'm giving you. Isn't this wonderful? They put her in a construction hat, and they put her in a neon vest to stand outside this building that's being built. Now, mind you, she's surrounded by reporters. And when you actually do these things in a construction site, they make everybody wear the hard hats and the vests and everything else. Nobody else is wearing them. In addition to that, none of her staff is wearing them. This is purely performative, completely performative as she stands there. So what happens? The media starts asking her all these questions, and let's just say it very, very quickly goes off the rails.
Despite your efforts like this, your approval rating is at 37%. That is President Donald Trump territory. Why do you think that is?
I'm not going to speak. Anyone can do a poll, so people can look at the poll and interpret what they want. But my priority right now is delivering for the people of Seattle. And that means projects like this, where we are putting paint on the ground and we are improving our transportation.
But that same poll says a 20-point drop in just a matter of months. How do you explain that?
So I think there are a lot of concerns right now about public safety, which I understand. Public safety is an extremely high priority for my office. We're just about to start a search for our new police chief, so I understand we're in a moment of uncertainty in the city where a lot of people are, wanting to see action, and we are going to be providing that action.
So does that mean Andre Sales? Does that mean Andre Sales is not a full-time candidate? If you say you're starting a search, is Andre Sales part of that search?
Interim Chief Sales is our interim police chief, and we are embarking on a search process, and I do not know yet whether interim Chief Sales will be applying for that process.
Okay, we got to move the mayor along here, folks.
We got time for we got one-on-one interviews with subject matter experts.
Again, I am focused on delivering for the people of Seattle, and that means public safety, and that means transportation, and that means homelessness, and that means affordable housing, and that is the work that I'm focused on.
Okay, we're going to keep walking.
Thank you, everyone.
We got to get the mayor on the schedule.
Okay. So what happens when you order the Village People on Temu or Wish.com is standing there, and her staff keeps trying to end the press conference. They keep trying to move her along, and they're literally dragging her away from the press, but she keeps stopping to answer the questions, probably because she doesn't want to be seen as impotent, because that's how she's been seen this whole time, controlled by her staff. But she keeps turning around. But the worst part of this video, aside from the fact that her answers suck, and her answers are terrible, and nobody coached her on how to talk to the media, and she's running away from them again, is as she's leaving, the Como camera captures. She almost gives a look to the camera. She must be giving it to a staff member or something afterwards. That look where you give to your spouse when the person who is just talking to you is insane and you can't believe you just had the conversation with them. You know when you're like your eyebrows go up and your eyes go wide and you kind of give them that smile like, can you believe that just happened? She gives that look to somebody on camera. As in, oh, forget all these media guys. But then it gets worse. She just sheds that neon vest, takes off the hat, like shows over, I got to get out of here. It is the most disingenuous thing I have ever seen her do. No, that's not true. I remember her pretending to play instruments when she couldn't play instruments, when she was busking at the Pike Place Market? How many other skills did she pretend to have while she was running for election? The problem is, at some point, you can't fool all of the people all the time anymore. And everybody has woken up to the fact that she is completely incompetent. That, and how about we practice a few answers here for a second? Mayor Wilson, what do you say to the fact that your poll numbers are in Donald Trump territory? That was actually the question she got. Here we go. You want me to do this? Ready? The only poll that matters is what the voters will say if I run for re-election. Decisions are not always popular, but I believe I am making the right decision, and time will prove me right. Boom! Done! Boom! Shakalaka. How hard is that? I should really be the... You know what? How come they haven't gone back to my application to be her comms person, Kevin? I am very mad. I want that $300,000 a year job.
Gee, let me think of some reasons. Probably one of them being you call her Mayor Fivehead.
Well,
so
yeah.
that might be part of the
No,
selection process.
Kevin, you aren't thinking this through. You know why? I can't call her Mayor Fivehead anymore. If they hire me, I'll have to say, yeah, she's the best mayor ever. She's just the greatest mayor you've ever seen before in your life. I'm getting $300,000 for this job. I'll say whatever they pay me. I'll give you a full interview scoop after she's out of office or after they fire me. I'll tell you everything. You want the guy who calls you Mayor Fivehead to stop, just hire him. Isn't that what you do? Isn't that how it goes in government? Speaking of government, well, we have a massive deficit. It's really the worst debt we've ever seen on top of that. Not looking good, but I see a whole bunch of people in Congress who have a whole lot of money. Why don't we just pull a DSA and seize all their assets? We'll talk about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The U.S. national debt surpassed $40 trillion for the first time in history on Wednesday, as the federal government is on pace to borrow more than $2 trillion this year alone. Now, for a lot of people, they go, who cares? Sure, they have those debt clocks, and we're not going to have to pay for it. That'll be our kids' problem. That'll be our grandkids' problem. That'll be our great-grandkids' problem. Guys, you're paying for it right now. When the government doesn't have enough money to pay its debt, it prints more money. And when you have more of something, it is worth less, otherwise known as inflation. Basic economics, my friends. So yes, it is affecting you right now, and it's dangerous. And we shouldn't be spending that much money. And I got to tell you, I'm really, really tired of people saying, oh, we're going to fix the debt, and we're going to solve the deficit, and we're going to stop all the out-of-control spending. No. Democrats roll in, they spend on their priorities. Republicans roll in, they spend on their priorities. I thought all that tariff money was going to pay off some of this stuff. Well, I have a new idea, Kevin, and I think it's a bipartisan idea. It's a really good one. I got it from the Democratic Socialists of America. You know how they always want to take everybody's money all the time? I say we seize all the money that all these Congress members have made in the stock market and use it to pay off the debt, right? I think that's a great idea. I mean, tax the rich, right? Isn't that the direction we should be going in? Let's start with Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, the far-left progressive squad member who's not a girl. California Democrat, otherwise known as socialist, Ro Khanna, now is estimated to be worth $167 million. Now, when he came into Congress, he was worth $78 million. So he's more than doubled his net worth while in Congress? In fact, a lot of the stuff he has could be worth a lot more. That's just what's on public disclosures. So why don't we just take his money? Why don't we just, let's tax the rich? I'm warming up to this idea. Let's just do that. No, of course you don't want to do that. Because, yeah, I mean, look, if he got it fairly, then everybody's entitled to what they earned. If he got it by doing backroom deals or subscribing to Nancy Pelosi's newsletter about how to make money in the stock market, I should really do that. Does Paul Pelosi have a mailer? I know there's that Twitter account that does whatever stock trades Nancy Pelosi does. Maybe I should follow that one. Maybe I'll be, you know what? No, I'm doing this wrong. We need the Ro Khanna stock trader. That guy went from worth $78 million to $167 million. Let's do that. So when we say tax the rich, let's just go after them. Speaking of Democrats who have completely caved to any principles or whatever it was that they had, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is now actually welcoming the far-left takeover of his party. You know, the Hassan Pikers and the Abdul Rahman al-Sayeds. So here's what he said about al-Sayed, the terrorist supporter, just the other day.
Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, al-Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself. But second, Michigan, Trump has so bungled the Michigan economy. You know, the numbers for Trump on how well he's doing in keeping costs down in the economy is in the low 30s. In the country, it's in the high 20s in Michigan. Why? He created a trade war with Canada. Anyone who's halfway decent as president knows that the Michigan economy and the Canadian economy are totally intertwined. And he's blown it. We're going to win Michigan.
Okay, never mind the fact that, you know, that whole thing's being resolved as we speak right now, and there's actually trade deals being done with Canada right now. But push past that for a second and how we were getting screwed in those trade deals. Let's just move past that for a second, and let's focus on the fact that now he's embracing the terrorist supporter. He is so desperate to hold on to power that the guy who supports terrorists, the raving anti-Semite who justified a terrorist trying to shoot up and burn down a synagogue preschool in Michigan. Yes, that all actually happened. That now Chuck Schumer is saying, come to the party. As long as we beat Donald Trump, there's a place for you in our party. Democrats have gone so far left that they are now quoting Abdul Rahman El Sayed, the terror supporter. Here's Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin. Tell me if any of this sounds familiar to you.
Every Democrat I know believes that we should get money out of politics and we should put more money into people's pockets, that we should raise the minimum wage and we should work for universal health care.
There it is, the entire wish list, right? The entire wish list. So is there any daylight between you guys and the far left who hate America?
First, thank you for having me on, Laura. Democrats are unified. We are united, and we're through most of these primaries now, so it's no longer Democrat on Democrat violence. Right now, everyone is focused on the November election.
Do you think they're really united, though, Ken? I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, the DSA, so you're saying that all the Democrats and the DSA candidates, they're all united?
Let me say, we are a Big Tent party. We always have been. As you've heard me say before, we have moderate Democrats, we have conservative Democrats, we have progressives, we have leftists. And the key is to make sure that despite all the labels that people throw around and the divisions within our party, there's more that unites us as Democrats than those small differences.
Yeah, we all hate America. They all think America deserved 9/11, right? Like Ro Khanna, who says more Democrats should be campaigning with Hassan Piker, who said that very thing.
Your comment on Hassan Piker, what should the Democrats do with him? Should they abandon him? Do you renounce your support of him? You tell me, Ro. Give it to me straight.
It's absurd. I mean, these are the same people who were at one point criticizing Democrats for going on Joe Rogan. I mean, remember when Bernie went on Joe Rogan? The people who said, "Oh, you can't go on Joe Rogan." These are the same folks who criticized me when I went on Ben Shapiro. Should I not go on Ben Shapiro's podcast? Because I disagree with him. We had a whole argument on the minimum wage. Just because someone is engaging with Hassan Piker, who has strong viewpoints on these issues, doesn't mean that you're endorsing every single one of Hassan Piker's positions.
Strong viewpoints. Likes Hamas, likes Hezbollah, believes America deserved 9/11. Yeah, totally the same as Ben Shapiro. Totally the same as Joe Rogan. They're all the same. Totally the same. This is the Democrat Party, my friends. This is how far they have strayed. Up next, probably the most entertaining story of the week, my friends. Apparently, a whole bunch of trans activists showed up for public comment and think that I am a detransitioner. Yeah, we'll have that insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Okay, this has to be the funniest story of the week, in my opinion. So yesterday, one of our listeners reaches out and goes, Ari, Brandy was talking about you on her podcast. And I go, why was Brandy talking about me on her podcast? And they said, well, apparently a bunch of trans activists think that you're Ari the detransitioner. And I said, I'm sorry, what? So I texted Brandy's producer, Nicole, earlier today. And I said, do you have this crazy audio you played yesterday about me being a detransitioner or something like that? And she said, oh, yeah, no problem. And she sent it over. Let me set this up for you for a second here, okay? I found this out rather recently. Ari is a very common name in the trans community. Why? Because it can be Ariel, Ariella. It's seen as kind of, it can go either way. To illustrate the point, Ari in Hebrew means lion. My wife's Hebrew name is Ariella. That means lioness. Lion, lioness. So it's Ari and Ariella. That's not her English name, but that's her Hebrew name. Yes, we all have Hebrew names and English names. Some of us just have the Hebrew name like I do.
So Ari's like Pat.
Like Pat.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, mind you, it's not that way in the Jewish world because
but
the male version is Ari or Aryeh.
Yeah,
The female version is Ariella, Ariella kind of thing.
But you're saying in the trans world,
it's like the Pat.
If you got Pat is your name or Ari is your name, you can
the thing. I didn't know it was that popular.
It's fluid.
It's fluid. Okay, I didn't know it was that popular. Well, anyway, there's our friend Ari the detransitioner. Ari has been very outspoken on detransitioning. Ari did a video a while ago where he and another friend of his, who I believe is also a detransitioner, were in Cal Anderson Park. And they're just making a video out there because there are these roving trans gangs going around assaulting people. And guess what? They went after Ari there also. Now, of course, they flipped the script, the activists, and they go, this person, Ari, is assaulting us. Have you ever met Ari? Ari is a stick of a person, a very, very skinny stick of a person. Ari is not assaulting anybody. Ari always has a cell phone and is always wearing a hat, which usually says make America great or make common sense great or anything like that. Ari is not assaulting anybody. But what's interesting to me is these trans activists apparently confused me and Ari the detransitioner. Now, what's happening is, remember that Seattle voted $300,000 for the trans refugee crisis because a whole bunch of them showed up and testified and claimed it was happening without any evidence whatsoever? Now they're going to every single council meeting they can, thinking, we got the $300,000 here. Why wouldn't we do it with every single other one? And that's exactly what they're doing, trying to get more and more of this money for no reason whatsoever. But it's the same activists that keep showing up. In fact, when Nicole sent me this video, I recognized a few of them. This one is named Violet. And Violet isn't turning violet. I will tell you, dude, you ain't fooling anybody. But Violet apparently has me confused with somebody else. This was at the Shoreline hearing just the other day during public comment.
Testing. Okay. Hello, I'm Violet Kawaguchi. I am the Executive Director of the Kawaguchi O'Connor Initiative. We are a Washington State 501c3 that helps transgender individuals flee legislatively hostile states and settle here in Washington. I would like to thank the Council for taking a stance on trans rights and that trans people should be included in the city of Shoreline. Brian Haywood's initiatives and the people who support them are dangerous. One of the people that Brian Haywood strongly associates with is named Ari Hoffman, and he has been known to go into local parks to intimidate people.
Hang on. Okay, can we back that up a second there? Hang on. First of all, how dare you assume my pronouns? How do you know that I don't identify as a she? Don't be fooled by the facial hair there, bro. Okay? Oh, sorry. Did I use the wrong pronouns for that person? Second of all, I mean, Kevin, how many things were wrong in that one sentence?
Well, it's a bunch of stuff that's almost right because, you do pal around with Brian Haywood,
Stayed
right?
at his house last weekend.
So,
absolutely true.
Like,
yes.
Oh, that sounds like Ari Hoffman.
Sure.
But then yelling and attacking people in parks, I'm like, that doesn't sound like Ari Hoffman.
All right, hang on. Let's back up a second. Kevin, every day when I come in, right? You'll be like, what's bothering you, buddy? Or how was your evening or whatever? And I will always tell you exactly what I did last night because I like to talk. Believe it or not, the talk show host likes to talk. And I will tell you what's going on. Have you ever heard me tell you my adventures in Cal Anderson Park at night?
No.
That is not how I spend my evenings, my friends.
If he was to say this guy goes on air and goes up against my trans community or whatever, then it's like, again, almost right.
Yeah, almost sure.
You're close.
Close. Let's back that up a second. I want to hear that again.
Initiatives and the people who support them are dangerous. One of the people that Brian Haywood strongly associates with is named Ari Hoffman, and he has been known to go into local parks to intimidate people who are advocates for trans rights or just people in general. These include parks with children at them. These are not people that represent the views of the shoreline that I live in, and I thank the council for sticking up for its trans constituents. But yeah.
Thank you. Is it correct you live in Shoreline?
Yeah, I live.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Hang on. That last part is my favorite part. Do you actually live in Shoreline, dude? And here's something else. Probably some people on that council have heard of me. Just to guess that a few of them might know who I am. And they're probably like, Ari Hoffman, the guy in Seattle? He don't live in Shoreline. And you think he's going into Shoreline Parks in the middle of the night? What the hell is this dude talking about? Yes, I am secretly a masked vigilante, and I spend my evenings avenging myself on the trans community of Seattle because my parents were killed by a gunman who was trans years ago, and as those pearls fell to the ground, I was exploring the innards of my psyche and decided I must dress in the mantle of Super Jew. That's what it is. The Hebrew Hammer himself goes out avenging myself on the trans community. Now, are you kidding me with this nonsense?
Does the poor other Ari travel around to various parks and, just get in people's faces, including kids?
No, there was this one incident where Ari went to Cal Anderson Park to video these crazy gangs that are going around beating the crap out of people and got the crap kicked out of him.
So theoretically, he could be like, hey, I'm going to hit up those Shoreline parks too.
Exactly. None of this even happened in Shoreline. So like you said, almost right on so many things, yet so wrong. But personally, what was the name of that nonprofit this person was talking about again? Where was it here?
I think it's their own name.
Right. I think they made this up. Hang on.
Testing. Okay. Hello, I'm Violet Kawaguchi. I am the executive director of the Kawaguchi O'Connor Initiative.
Kawaguchi O'Connor Initiative. So you created your own nonprofit for the trans money that you're trying to get out of Shoreline.
It sounds like they and someone else did. Right?
Yeah, Tamagotchi. The people who make those little electronic pets you used to have, right? Tamagotchi?
Boy.
Is that what he said? I think I heard him say something about a Tamagotchi. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Oh, the grift is in. You're trying to get money for your own nonprofit that this person, Violet, founded, and doing so by demonizing me or Ari the detransitioner or one of us. I'm not really understanding what's going on here, but there's a lot being processed through Violet's head right now. Personally, I should go after this nonprofit, Kevin. They misgendered me, and I do not forget. In fact, I will hold them responsible for misgendering me. I should report this to the hate crimes hotline immediately. How do they know I don't identify as she? Is it the facial hair? Is it the receding hairline? Is it the body hair? What gave it away that I don't identify as she? Up next, my friends, yet another company is moving out of Washington and doing layoffs. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, another company is moving out of Washington. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families failed to protect kids, and a mom's kids got stolen by Washington State. Yes, this all actually happened. But before we get to any of that, my friends, looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on our last segment here. So this one here, Forrest Cat says, Ari, if this person's claiming that I have been, me personally, has been known to intimidate people in the park, isn't that actionable slander? You know, that's a good question. I wonder if that is. Slander is spoken, print is libel. Right, okay, making sure I got that. I wonder if that is. I should reach out to the Tamagotchi factory or whatever that person's fake nonprofit is and say something. This one here from the 206. Ari has been intimidating in the parks. Have you been barking at puppy dogs on their walks? No, I don't. The only time I ever go on a walk is Sabbath afternoon, maybe when I take my in-laws' dog out for a walk, by the way. People say some crazy stuff. Crazy, crazy stuff people point out there. One person, Dan Smith, is calling me Mad Mardigan. Okay, we all saw the Willow movie, right? I don't have the hair for that no more. Kevin's like, I've seen pieces of it. That's one of those movies I remember liking a lot as a kid, and then when you do the rewatch when you get older, going, oh, this movie's going to be great. Willow does not hold up. It does not hold up. Holds up about as well as those Ewok movies. Oh, wait, who's starring in the Ewok movies? Ah, that's the problem. I understand. Switching gears now, just got this. The Democrats just sent out this email. You ready to laugh? Who wants to laugh and cry and yell and scream all at the same time? Are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. From the Washington Democrat Party, right here. Washington unemployment remains at an elevated 5% thanks to Republicans' failing economy. Washington has lost 16,600 jobs over the past year. Hey, can we play this game? I know where they went. I know where at least 2,000 of them are going. Nashville, Tennessee, where Starbucks is going, right? You're blaming President Trump for this? Here's what they write. Today, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released new state unemployment data, that was yesterday, showing that Washington has lost 16,600 jobs since Donald Trump retook office. Hang on, can we do a little math here? Who became governor the same time Trump was elected? Does anybody remember who was running in that race? Anybody remember? There was this guy, I can't remember what his name was. He became governor. What? It's on the tip of my tongue, right? I know what his name is.
It's not my name. All right, Turd Ferguson.
That's right. That's who became governor and immediately signed the largest tax increase in Washington state history and also did whatever he could to chase away businesses. It got so bad, the dude had to meet with the NBA to try and calm them down on bringing back the Sonics as an expansion team because they were concerned about his policies like the massive income tax. I mean, you name it. You name it. So you're going to blame Republicans for this? I'm just making sure I got this right. You're going to blame Republicans for this. What other nonsense did they say here? Wait a second. Hang on. Before we move on to the rest of their email. Was it Republicans that put on the head tax, the jumpstart tax that chased all those jobs out of Seattle? Is that Republicans' fault? Is that Donald Trump's fault? Is any of that Donald Trump's fault? Anybody? No, that was beforehand. Today's data comes as Trump's approval rating plummets to 33%, the lowest point in his presidency, as Washingtonians struggle to afford daily necessities over his disastrous policies. Hang on. Who's responsible for gas going up? Was that President Trump? Was that President Trump at all? Is he responsible for gas prices going up? Or how about this? Is he responsible for utility bills going up? Gas, utilities, that was both because of the Climate Commitment Act, right? Did Donald Trump pass that? Did Republicans pass that? No, they fought against that, kicking and screaming. That raises the cost on everything. That raises the cost on groceries. That raises the cost on goods. That raises the cost on life. Okay, let's continue here. Trump and Washington Republicans continue to do nothing but push their reckless economic agenda that's killing Washington's economy, bleeding good-paying jobs, and jacking up the cost of nearly everything. A reminder, the average Washington family has spent $3,600 more on goods and services this year because of Trump's harmful agenda. Wait a second. Kevin, isn't that the number of how much extra we're paying because of gas prices? You literally took everything you did and then blamed it on Trump and the Republicans. Wait, it's so much worse. It's so much worse. Including $769 on housing costs. They mean utility bills. No, that's because of them. $310 on groceries. No, as I explained, that's because of them. Meanwhile, Trump's deadly and unpopular war of choice with Iran has cost Washington families $263 in higher gas prices. That's sort of true. It has actually increased gas prices. But do you know how much the war in Iran elevated gas prices? 7 cents a gallon in Washington. Meanwhile, 58 cents a gallon is the Climate Commitment Act, which just goes towards the coffers of retired Democrats from the Washington state legislatures, of nonprofits they founded to get money from the Climate Commitment Act. $1.33 total is taxes that the Democrats passed, including a gas tax, 7 cents per gallon, which is going to go up with the price of inflation. Literally everything in this email, you guys did. Literally every single thing. Every single thing. Are you guys kidding me? Are you guys kidding me with this nonsense? Do you think it was because of Donald Trump that Starbucks moved to Nashville? You know, Starbucks could go international. Starbucks really could go international. They could move their headquarters anywhere they want in the world. They're staying in America. They're moving to Nashville out of Washington. How about this one here? I got this one today. I got a new notice today that was sent to the Washington State Employment Security Department. Twin City Foods, Inc. in Ellensburg, a massive food company, will be laying off 109 employees beginning November 2nd. Are politicians going to blame this one on AI? I don't think this is an AI issue here in the massive food processing company. No, it's not AI related. Are they going to blame Genesco, that roofing company that we've been talking about the past few days? That's roofing manufacturers. They're going to blame that one on AI too. It's interesting because I looked up Genesco's website. They're hiring at their other manufacturing facilities. They're closing the one in Fife, Washington. Twin Food Cities. You know what the other city is? The other state where they have this stuff in? It's in Michigan. That's the other place where they have these. Washington and Michigan. They're consolidating their operations to Michigan. So Twin City is going to be like Twin Pines Mall. It's going to be Lone City Foods, like Lone Pines Mall. If you get the reference, we can still be friends. That's what's going to happen with Twin City Foods. That's what's going to happen. They're consolidating elsewhere, just like T-Mobile. What did T-Mobile do? T-Mobile is reducing their jobs here while still hiring at their other headquarters. Why? Because it is expensive to have those high-paying jobs here, and it's not Donald Trump that passed the tax on them. It's the Democrats here in Washington state. The Democrats did that. And yet they have this entire email out blaming Republicans for this. By the way, you know my favorite part about this, Kevin? You know how many times I've been removed from the Democrat mailing list? Shasti Conrad blocked me on social media. They have removed me from their mailing list. You think I don't have friends who send me stuff? I have a few people that I've asked, hey, anytime you see this, can you send it to me? Because they've taken me off their list. I have resubscribed to this list so many times. This had to get forwarded to me by somebody else. They hate me that much. I'm reminded of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. No, they just can't handle the truth. In response, Washington Democrat Party Chair Shasti Conrad released the following statement. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump promised to deliver a brighter future for Washington families. But instead, all he's done is ruin Washington's economy, kill off good-paying jobs, spike prices on just about everything. Now, Washington families are forced to take on further debt or empty their savings account just to afford the essentials to pay their bills. You know, I seem to remember this guy, Turd Ferguson. I seem to remember him saying that he was never going to sign a massive tax increase. And then he did it twice. I remember that. I remember him saying we weren't going to tax our way out of our financial problems. I remember him saying we need to cut spending. And then he cut Medicare, Medicaid, K through 12 education, college education. I seem to remember all of that very, very vividly. I remember all of it. But you're going to blame Donald Trump for all of this? Incredible. Really incredible. And you know the crazy thing is, so many people who believe this. I was speaking to the 30th District Republicans. It was nice of Kevin, not this Kevin, different Kevin, out there to invite me out there. Really nice of them to have me out there. And while I was out there, we're talking about how on the campaign trail, when people are running for office as Republicans, you should just be saying, Donald Trump didn't raise your gas prices. It was the Climate Commitment Act. Donald Trump didn't raise your utility prices. That was the Climate Commitment Act. Donald Trump didn't raise your price of groceries. When you have higher gas prices, that was done by the Democrats on the Climate Commitment Act. That raised your costs of everything else, literally everything else. Donald Trump didn't put the tax on high earners that chased them out of Seattle. Donald Trump didn't pass the largest tax increase in Washington state history, which chased out a lot of people and businesses. Donald Trump didn't do any of that. So whatever you're complaining about now, whatever your gripes are, it wasn't because of the orange man. It was because of the skinny, nerdy man who's in Olympia right now. That's whose fault it is. And all his little friends, like Shasti Conrad. Here's something else, by the way. Do you know what the national unemployment rate is? The national unemployment rate is just under 4%. Okay? And it's going down. The Washington unemployment rate is a full percentage point higher, and it's continuing to go up. In fact, this month I was absolutely shocked that it was stagnant. Let's say, God forbid, we lose on all the initiative fights. Let's say we lose on the income tax, on repealing it. Let's say we lose on protecting women's sports. Let's say we lose on parental rights. Let's say we lose on all of that. Then you know what happens? You're going to have a massive exodus from this state. And odds are, what will they do? Still blame Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump's fault, is what they will say. Hey, I wonder how the Florida economy is doing. I wonder how the Texas economy is doing. Washington's economy is in the crapper because of Democrat policies. This one here from the 360. Washington loses jobs and it's Republicans' fault. I smell that strong aroma of fabric burning again, so the very restricted vision here in central Washington is not wildfires after all. I get what you're going with there. Yes, it's climate change. You spent all this money on climate change just to tax all of us so you could steal all of our money, right? That's what it is? Mm-hmm. They're going to keep blaming Republicans for Washington's problems. Also, got a question here. Housing costs. Rob makes this point over on the text line. Washington housing costs. What do Biden's 20 million illegals do to housing costs, supply and demand? If you have more people coming in, then you need more housing. And if you're not keeping up with it because you have too many onerous regulations and you can't build these things fast enough because of the regulations, then guess what? Your supply is going to go down. Supply and demand. So things get more expensive. I don't know if it was actually 20 million, but let's say it was 10 million, and you actually imported all of them. Yeah. What about that, guys? What about that? They don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to talk about that. No, of course not. And here's something else. What do the Democrats have planned for this session? Representative Travis Couture has updated his list. We've been reading his list all week as he's been updating it because he knows what's going on in the legislature. So he's been updating his list of what the Democrats have planned if they get a supermajority this time around. Here's the new and updated list. Statewide payroll tax on jobs, modeled after Seattle's disastrous Jumpstart head tax. And if you think it's going to stay with high earners, my friends, likely it's not. A new tax on unrealized capital gains. That means your stocks. That means the value of your house. That means the value of your company. That means money that you don't actually have. That means, in theory, money. Tripling property taxes. and increasing it annually by inflation and population. Reduce the threshold of new state income tax below $1 million to apply to the middle class if it's not defeated in November by repealing the income tax. A new margins tax scheme, which is being drafted. We'll find out exactly what that is. More reckless spending, more deficits, where Democrats cut from the vulnerable in programs that work to give more money to their special interests like trans surgeries, right? That's what it is. Effectively eliminating juvenile detention for juvenile gang offenders like the Bite of Seattle shooter. Using state government to sell and distribute hard drugs like fentanyl. Great. Eliminating penalties for sex offenders who prey on children. Yes, they've done that before. Close down prisons. Early release violent criminals into communities. Reduce law enforcement. Eliminate bail. Destroy our criminal justice system by making it impossible to obtain a defense attorney. Effectively releasing criminals before they ever see a courtroom. These are all proposals that he has cited. And then redistricting Republican lawmakers out of existence to create a permanent and generational Democratic supermajority. Problem is, none of us will be here anymore. Everybody else will be long gone. Anybody who can get out will get out. Democrats want to blame Donald Trump for destroying Washington State. No, my friends. No, my friends. Donald Trump is trying to make sure that we have the right funding going to the right places, like with regards to Homeless Inc. How is Katie Wilson spending that money right now? How is Mayor Fivehead spending that money right now? How is Turd Ferguson spending that money right now? You talk about the gas prices, that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. If you are a candidate who is listening to the show right now, I learned so much by losing a race for office that I should be a political consultant. I learned everything not to do. We all make mistakes. But I will tell you, the greatest thing ever, when you get sucked into that debate about Donald Trump, you have been given the ultimate line. Donald Trump did not pass the Climate Commitment Act. He did not sign it into law. That was done by the Democrats, and it jacked up your gas prices by 58 cents a gallon, adding to the already close to $1 worth of taxes that were instituted by the Democrats here, and they just passed a new tax, 7 cents a gallon, that's going to go up every year with inflation. Donald Trump didn't do any of that. Gas prices determine the prices of goods because the goods have to get transported somewhere. And now your goods are more expensive. It also increases the prices of farming. And nobody has destroyed farming more in Washington State than the Democrats and Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee. So you want to blame Donald Trump for all of that? Donald Trump didn't put on the tax on high earners, chasing them out of Seattle to Bellevue and chasing them out of the state entirely. Donald Trump didn't put the tax on millionaires, which is going to go to all of us, every single one of us, chasing out employers out of the state. Donald Trump didn't chase Starbucks out of Washington. When they throw that stuff at you, you got to just know the facts. And you say, I listen to the Ari Hoffman show, so I know the facts. You got to know the facts, and you got to come rapid fire right back at them. And you say to your opponent, because most of you are challenging incumbents, you say, you voted for the income tax. You voted for the gas tax. You voted for the Climate Commitment Act. You voted for this. You voted for that. You raised the prices, not Donald Trump. That's how you debate. Quote Will Ferrell, that old school movie. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. In another case of the state failing in spectacular fashion, a new report is out showing that the Department of Children, Youth, and Families failed to protect kids, the one thing you guys are supposed to be good at. Give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Next week, my friends, little preview for you, by the way. So next week, all next week, we're actually going to be giving away a pair of tickets to Taylor Dane at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. And that concert's going to be over on September 6th. So make sure you are listening to the show next week so that way you can win tickets to see a global pop icon who is, of course, the artist behind Tell It to My Heart. So make sure you're listening all next week so you can find out your ways to win. Also, coming up at 4:45 today, I will give you my review of Mutiny, the new Jason Statham action thriller. So make sure you're listening for that. Interesting article here on the Washington State Standard. Deaths and serious injuries of children involved with Washington's child welfare system last year were even higher than record levels the state previously reported. According to new data, in 2025, 35 children died, 49 more nearly died either from abuse, neglect, or other maltreatment, or amid these conditions after having some connection to the child welfare system in the past year. If 35 children died, plus 49 children who died, what exactly is DCYF doing? When you have close to 100 children dying, what are you doing wrong? Is this because of the Keeping Families Together Act, where you can have drug addicts keeping kids in the house and you're not taking them away from them? Is it because DCYF, how many times did we hear that they were monitoring a family, but we're monitoring them that closely? This according to a report from the state's own Office of the Family and Children's Ombuds, presented to an oversight board on Thursday. There's a few other cases that remain pending, so the number of 2025 deaths of children could be even higher. Accidental drug ingestion by children fueled last year's surge in deaths and injuries. Stop right there. We have Travis Couture on 3 or 4 times a session just to talk about this issue. That is the Keeping Families Together bill, where a parent was cited for drug use, but we don't take away kids from drug addicts anymore, and as a result, children die. I've told this story at least a dozen times, but a friend of mine who is actually a lawyer in this world told me that it was such a stark difference when she was the lawyer taking kids away, and you see this person who's all hopped up on drugs, and she told me that very, very often what would happen was when this person was ready to get their kids back and had cleaned themselves up and detoxed and dried out and whatever the case may be, they didn't even remember having the meeting when their kids were taken away. Didn't even remember it. And oftentimes she didn't even recognize them aside from the paperwork. She said they looked like monsters before, and they come back in looking all put together. Yeah. Accidental drug ingestion by children. They shouldn't be around the drugs in the first place. Do you know that if a kid is born addicted to drugs right now, they get to stay with mom, even though mom was doing drugs while she was pregnant with a kid? Most incidents took place where children were in their parents' care, and the majority of children who died were reportedly under 1 year old. What does that mean? Touched fentanyl, found it, swallowed a pill, thought it was a candy, who knows what. Or they were addicted to drugs and the parents never did anything about it when they were born. Through the first half of this year, critical injuries have dropped significantly as drug overdoses have declined statewide. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which runs the state's... Oh, wait a second. Drug overdoses have declined. Could that be because there's less drugs coming in as the border's been more secure? You think maybe those two things are related? Just a little bit? DCYF, which runs the state's child welfare system, reported 23 fatalities, 34 near fatalities last year. The Ombuds Office examines different cases than the department, accounting for the discrepancy between the two data sets. This is the kind of stuff that, how are we not doing more to stop it? How are we not doing more to solve it? How are the Democrats refusing to do anything about it? What, you think it's being bigoted towards drug addicts? Children are literally dying because of this bad policy. Now, mind you, Republicans and Democrats voted for this thing. But since it passed and the disastrous results have been made apparent, the Republicans have done everything they can to try and repeal this thing, and the Democrats have done nothing. But also, DCYF, what the hell are you doing? You keep finding these kids in these bad conditions. You keep leaving them in the house. I understand some of it you're restricted by law, but in other cases you're not. When over 100 kids die on your watch, you've got problems. You've got massive problems, and you are failing at your job. It's not just that, by the way. Kids are also being taken from the home. When we come back, my friends, this next story is absolutely insane about because of Senate Bill 5599, our worst nightmares have come true, where now Washington State can hide children from their parents. And one of these moms joins us next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Today's Newsmaker Spotlight is brought to you by our friends over at Renewal by Andersen, Western Washington, windows and doors for every home. Last weekend, I met Jody Holman. Jody Holman's daughter is still missing. Still missing. She was speaking at Freedom Fest for Let's Go Washington. Jody Holman moved to Texas. Her family is an Army family, and her daughter was allegedly stolen by Washington State. Her daughter is still missing. Why? Because her daughter was convinced by a school in Puyallup that she was a different gender. And apparently, even though Jody's family was actually going along with the gender plan, they were so desperate to save their daughter that they weren't moving fast enough for the district. And the district hid their child, and she still doesn't know where her child is to this day. Now, we're going to release this entire interview, which is close to 30 minutes long, the story's so crazy, on Sunday. But for now, I want you to listen to a piece of this interview I did with Jody just yesterday discussing this. And the rest you'll be able to find at KVI.com.
So we thought, this is a fresh start. We'll try this again. So we did go ahead and re-enroll Elle into the Puyallup School District. And we did go ahead forward with this because we just figured maybe this was a one-off thing. Maybe this was just this school, just this counselor. So we gave it another go. continued issues. Things were continuing to escalate. But what led us to Texas was there was a moment, and some people in Washington and in the Seattle Tacoma area remember that Elle's information was shared. She disappeared from Puyallup. She was on the news with David Rose. He went ahead and put her picture out there, and she went missing in Washington, and she was gone for a few months. We had no solid leads, didn't have any signs of life, and then we were served. My husband and I were served with to appear in court for family to terminate. It was basically to accuse us of being abusive and to terminate our parental rights. Is what it boiled down to.
Who are the ones who are serving you with this?
So, what happened was it was from Eleanor, and it was an emergency, what they call an emergency ex parte hearing, and that was the first signs of life that we had in months. We didn't know she was alive, and then we got court documents. So there was conflicting feelings. I mean, we had this sense of relief. Our child is alive. They filed court documents, like our kid's alive. So we were like, okay, we're going to go to court. We had no idea what we were really going for. It just kind of caught us off guard. I think we had 5 business days to really like go from between when we were served and when we were to appear. So, it was really difficult because like you haven't, as a parent, you haven't seen your kid in months. Your kid's been missing. And you're just like, I want to hug my child. I missed my child. I want to love on my child. And it was like, no, the attitude, the strangers that my child was with, we just didn't know. And so in that hearing, they granted the emergency ex parte. Elle was placed with a stranger while we were there. And so we really weren't sure what was going on. We ended up retaining a lawyer just because we clearly were out of our depth. And then, so in the first couple of instances in front of the judge in Pierce County, Elle did not have representation that was formal. There was an advised counsel who was present, and that person was from Team Child. And later, Elle was assigned counsel by the court because she's a minor. And so somehow in the whole process, instead of the assigned counsel actually taking on Elle's case, Team Child ended up becoming counsel of record, and then was continued to
this government funded agency here in Washington that's supposed to be helping kids is the one trying to take your kid away from you in court.
Yes. So one of the entities, if we go back to that document, one of the entities on that document was a place called Oasis Center in Tacoma, and they're a youth LGBTQ plus center for runaways and teens who feel that they need this support. And they are government funded, and they clearly, the school districts are given this information to provide to these teens that, hey, if that child in your school has an issue, they can come here. So there's a governmental connection there. Oasis Center also receives government funding. I don't have the exact structure of all their funding, but I do know that they receive funding from the government. And then Oasis Center connected Elle with Team Child. And at this point in time, Elle's in high school. And so Team Child also receives government funding.
This is absolutely crazy. So to this day, you don't know where your daughter is. She's in the custody of these organizations. She's no longer with you guys, and you don't know where she is, and Washington State is paying for this.
Yes. So Washington State basically has paid for the education that they then indoctrinated my child into believing that we were abusive. And then encouraged my child to go to a center for runaways. So even though they didn't say, we want you to run away from your family, they encouraged my child to go to a center for runaways. And that center plugged my child in to a legal firm funded by the government that helped to attempt to sever our parental rights.
This is absolutely crazy. This is nuts. I mean, this is the nightmare scenario that we've been cautioning everybody about. So, I mean, Jody, if you had a word to say to other parents out there in Washington, all right, and they even have an inkling this is going on, what would you advise to them?
First of all, it's not an inkling that it's going on. It is going on.
No. I mean, if a parent thinks it's going on with their kid. Yeah.
The parents shouldn't, even if they don't have an inkling, the parents in Washington State need to operate knowing that this is happening. Whether they have an inkling of it or not, this is happening. These schools are doing this. These schools, if you walk into a school district in Washington State, they are mandated to provide care and gender affirming practices and then not tell the parents. I've never, ever taught my kids, oh, it's okay if that person over there tells you to keep a secret from your family or your parents. It's okay if that person over there tells you to keep a secret. I've never said that. I've only ever said, it is never okay for anyone to tell you to keep a secret from your parents because those are bad people who tell you that. But that's what's happening. These schools are saying, it's okay. We won't tell your parents.
That's absolutely crazy. Jody, I appreciate your time today. I'm so sorry for what you're going through, but please keep us updated on Eleanor's situation when you get them, because I'm sure the audience is going to want to know what's going on with them. And parents, listen to what Jody is saying, because she's gone through it. She's still going through it. And this is something we are hearing more and more reports about. I'm up to about 9 parents who I've spoken to who had some similar things happen. Some of them want to go on air. Some of them don't want to go on air. So, Jody, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your story with us.
Yes, thank you. And I don't want to see this happening anymore. I don't want to see that we fled our home state because of this.
Right.
And I don't want to see it happen to anyone else.
Yeah.
I want it to stop.
And I hope a lot of people out there are listening. And even if you don't have an inkling, look at it, see if this stuff is happening in your schools, because it's happening in a lot of them. Jody Holman, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, my friends, if you missed any part of the show, you can always get the podcast on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, while you're there, to rate, share, and subscribe. Now, this week, I went to see the new Jason Statham movie, Mutiny, which comes out today. It's in theaters this weekend. It's starring Jason Statham as Cole Reed, who is a bodyguard for a shipping magnate tycoon who is murdered in front of him. He is framed for the crime, and then he is on the run from authorities while trying to prove who killed his boss. Now, Jason Statham movies are exactly what you expect them to be. You go for the blood, you go for the gore, you go for the insane action. Except there are different kinds of Jason Statham movies. There are ones where he's acting in a different movie and he's playing a serious character most of the time, even if it's a ridiculous movie. Take like The Italian Job, something like that, you know, where he's doing that. The Fast and Furious movies, ridiculous movies, but he's playing a serious character kind of thing. The Jason Statham standalone movies have a few kinds of Jason Statham movies. There are the ones that are over the top, insane, give the people what they want to the point of ludicrous. There are the ones that are over the top, insane, give the people what they want. And there are the ones that try to take themselves seriously while being over the top action crazy, right? Now, if you watch the trailer for this movie, and we'd like to thank our friends from Allied Global Marketing who took us to the press screening the other night. It was lots of fun. It was also lots of fun to see some of our KVI friends and go with some of our friends there. That was a lot of fun. This one was the latter category. This is the one which tries to take itself seriously and gives you the action along the way. Now, if you watch the trailer for this movie, you think it's just going to be horrific death scenes, lots of blood, lots of gore. It had that, don't get me wrong, but it was trying to be kind of dramatic in the middle at multiple times where there's a little too much drama for me. It's a little, I want the beekeeper. Well, of course, the beekeeper who lives on this house for no reason whatsoever has weapons inside the beehive, and he's just going to go protect the horde or the swarm or whatever it was that he said in that movie. It's over the top. This one, a little too serious in some parts, trying to be a little too heavy in some parts, which is fine. I think it was I went in expecting it to just be stabbing, death. Now, here's how I recommend you see this movie. I want you to go to a packed theater. It doesn't have to be a nice theater. I want you to go to a theater where people are going to be there. You know why? The entire theater going, oh, at the same time. Worth it for just that. There are fun new ways for people to die in this movie, and that's half the fun, right? So you want to see it in the crowded theater. However, maybe you got lucky. Kevin sent me an article where Amazon accidentally released this movie early. They released the Mutiny movie early, and some people were apparently streaming it, and now they're all mad about the box office.
Yeah, apparently it just showed up. Someone posted it at the wrong time or whatever, but even more so, I guess because the studio that's involved, there's also some questioning because I don't think it's an Amazon-connected movie.
No, I don't think it is.
So they were like, how did this even make it up there this early? Like, did they have the file? And so there's some weird stuff going on with that.
Well, it may have been pre-buy. So here's my guess. It was probably one of those pre-order, and probably the movie's somewhere behind a paywall that doesn't activate until a certain date or something like that on Amazon.
But that's pretty wild that they had that already uploaded, ready to go before it's in theaters. They're like sitting and waiting for that thing to be able to be released. I mean, like that's how far ahead they are now.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, I mean, behind the scenes.
What is it, like 2 weeks tops, 3 weeks maybe till those things are available for download? So it's probably like the day it's released. I don't follow these things as much as I used to. You know, we were the guys who used to go to Best Buy on new release days to get the DVDs. My guess is probably as soon as the movie's out, they start saying buy it for pre-release. Right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably what went wrong
And
here.
honestly, with a movie like this, they know the shelf life in the theater. They're like, okay, unless it, like something crazy happens and this is like a phenomenon. It's not probably going to last more than a couple of weeks.
Right. And the boys are going to get drunk on a Saturday night and go see the latest Jason Statham or go get some dim sum or whatever and go see this. This isn't exactly a couples movie ready for the Valentine Day season. You know, it's not that kind of thing. It is exactly 90 minutes. That's what you want out of it.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Where are those days at where we can just go in and see a nice, tight action movie, 90 minutes in and out?
Yep.
Thank you.
That is what it is. So if you want my review of the Jason Statham classic, the new straight to Amazon before it even went to theaters classic Mutiny, I will tell you this. It's a lot of fun. I got everything I wanted out of it. I'm putting it in that category just to let you know what kind of Jason Statham category it is. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's fun. It's ridiculous. People get killed in new and interesting ways. But like I said, you should actually go see it in theaters just so you get that whole crowd reaction. Like me and Matt Gilbert going, oh, whenever he took a hook to a guy's head or whatever it was.
It's funny because I've never been the biggest Jason Statham guy.
Yeah.
Like he's fine. I don't dislike him, but I just don't like. He acts tough. I mean, I guess my problem is like back in the day, like I got it for Arnold. Arnold had a thing going on. No one had seen, like, he's got a bodybuilder's body and he's doing all these one-liners. He's got an accent that's like so unique, especially for when he would like burst onto the scene. You got Stallone, same deal, like super, built, all that stuff. My stuff was it's always the martial arts stuff. So, I was always a Van Damme guy, a Seagal guy, where it's like there's something unique. The action scenes will be unique because of the choreography and all that stuff. But old Jason, he's like, I guess he's a throwback in a way. Like mostly the guy's going to operate with some guns, and he's just going to throw a traditional old wind-up kind of punch, just like John Wayne. And it's very simple and very straightforward.
So I'll actually modify that slightly, okay? Because I see where you're coming at. There wasn't so much punching in this. It's normally grabbing a guy's head and impaling it on something. Or here's the crazy knife work or hook work or whatever it is
that sounds fun.
Do.
You know what? Maybe I will go check this out.
That's what I'm saying. Now, actually, I wasn't the biggest Jason Statham fan. I watched him when he was in other things, when he's part of an ensemble.
Yeah, he shows up. Like, he shows up in those, what is it, the Stallone Expendables movies, right? He's one of the main...
Well, he's one of the main guys.
Yeah, but it's like, it's,
Well, it's like since then they said, okay, we're going to do our own, he's going to have his own line of things.
Yeah.
Now, this kind of makes me want to go see, this is because of Mike. Mike always loved the Jason Statham movies, right?
He's a fan.
So I always went with Mike to see because I always like go to the movies with Mike. Mike wasn't available this time, but I go to the Jason Statham movies. Now I kind of want to go see Crank and all like the old ones. I want to go back and see those and see the evolution of the Jason Statham. So do you get what your money's worth? Yes. You want to see horrible gore and fighting and all that? Yes. If you're going for the drama, you're going for the wrong movie. I will tell you that. And me personally, if you're going to wait for the Amazon download, invite your buddies over. Have a poker night, have a card night, have a barbecue night, get drunk or whatever it is, and watch this so that you guys are all going together, every few seconds. Because that's the appeal of this movie. That's the fun of this movie. And also, it was kind of funny because the people from Allied Global Marketing, they said to me, they go, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. And I didn't have the heart to say, there haven't been that many movies I want to see out in a while.
Or the ones that have, it didn't work out. Like, I would have gone and seen that Spider-Man. I guess you did. But
I saw the Spider-Man.
Yeah, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Right, the scheduling's a little tough. I mean, I had to go out to Linwood to see the Spider-Man movie. That wasn't exactly convenient.
I don't think I could have made that. Like, you get to kind of, on days like that, bust out of here quick, but I have to post stuff.
You got to do other stuff.
So I don't know if I would have been able to make it in time.
I don't even know why they did it. They've never had one out there as far as I know. But anywho, go see Jason Statham's Mutiny. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's exactly what you want. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues during Final Hour Free for All. Your calls, your thoughts, your texts, your stories. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, we have record debt. Ro Khanna has record earnings. Let's confiscate the whole thing. Plus, also, it looks like one of the teams in the WNBA has actually created a transgender mascot. I kid you not. But before we get to any of that, my friends, Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson's bad press conferences continue. Yesterday, she was trying to advertise that they had this new initiative that she signed, which was going to make it much, much easier to build housing here in Seattle. Now, why is it difficult to build housing in Seattle? I'll tell you about one project I was doing with my brother-in-law that it took so long I actually had to sell my shares in it. 7 years. 7 years to build one house on one lot. 7 years. The restrictions are so insane. You name it. It is absolutely crazy. The restrictions, the hoops they make you jump through to build anything. I'm dealing with it right now with the planning department, with that fire we had out at the synagogue and the building we have to rebuild. I cannot believe how easy this was supposed to be to replace a building that caught fire, and now what they are hammering us with. I just got an email during the commercial break, which, of course, they send it at 5 o'clock. Why do you think they send it at 5 o'clock? So I can't scream and yell because they want to take off. It is because of their insane building codes that things take so long and are so expensive. So Katie Wilson says, we're going to expedite those. Sure. I'll believe it when I actually see it. But basically, she has done a signing for this thing, a press release for this thing, and now she's having an actual press conference for this thing. Now, let's start off with this. Katie Wilson is standing there in a construction hat and a neon vest. She looks like Discount Village People. What happens when you order the Village People on Wish.com? That's Katie Wilson at this press conference. It's embarrassing. But what's more embarrassing is that nobody else is wearing this stuff. What, you thought it'd be cool? You thought you looked like you're really the boss of the project? No, the bosses don't want to wear the hard hat when they go on the projects. Nobody else is wearing it, not the media, not her staff. So this is just for a photo op to look cool. You just look ridiculous. You look like you're playing dress up. You look like you're playing grown up. There's that. And just because you're wearing this stuff doesn't mean the hard hat's going to shield you from the tough questions. So what happens is, if you have a press conference, you got to be ready for all the questions. Now, where this video appears to pick up is she gives her statement and then wants to run away from the media. Her staff is trying to get her out of there because they know that the questions she's going to be getting are about the Bite of Seattle shooting and the botched response. She's going to be getting a question of, we're coming up on a month since the Bite of Seattle shooting, and still nobody's named suspects. You're coming up on a month of the Seattle shooting, and you still have 2 shooters possibly on the loose. Haven't even given descriptions for these guys. Your poll numbers are cratering. They're in the dumps. Either they're 37% by one poll or they're 22% favorability by another poll. You're in huge trouble. You think you're not going to get these questions? Listen carefully to the soundbite. As you hear the staff trying to drag her away throughout this entire thing, did you guys learn your lesson the last time you did something like this? That when you drag her away from the media, you tick off the mainstream media.
Despite your efforts like this, your approval rating is at 37%. That is President Donald Trump territory. Why do you think that is?
I'm not going to speak. Anyone can do a poll, so people can look at the poll and interpret what they want. But my priority right now is delivering for the people of Seattle. And that means projects like this, where we are putting paint on the ground and we are improving our transportation.
But that same poll says a 20-point drop in just a matter of months. How do you explain that?
So I think there are a lot of concerns right now about public safety, which I understand public safety is an extremely high priority for my office. We're just about to start a search for our new police chief, so I understand we're in a moment of uncertainty in the city where a lot of people are wanting to see action, and we're going to be providing that action.
No, do you know why there's a 20-point drop? I'm going to tell you why. First of all, you keep having all these unforced errors. You keep running away from the press. You keep doing stupid things. And then everybody saw how Seattle could be safe and secure and enjoyable during the World Cup. And what that did was reminded everybody of what old Seattle used to be like. and then they're stuck with you as mayor. So what happens after the World Cup is the homeless come back with a vengeance. And the homeless are everywhere now. Everywhere. They are coming back. There are more now than there were before the World Cup. And you have multiple shootings, shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting, and we don't have suspects. Why don't we have suspects? Whether it was what happened at the Bite of Seattle, or whether it was what happened outside Cowgirls in Pioneer Square, or any of these other incidents, you know why you don't have suspects? Because right afterwards, she made such a big deal about turning the cameras off. So people are concerned about public safety, and they don't even care about the surveillance questions, about the, hey, maybe we should have a discussion about what happens with this data. They don't care because they're scared. When people are scared, they will give up their safety. They will give up their security. They will give up their privacy. Excuse me, not security. They will give up their privacy. And that is exactly what's happening. Now, you want to have a discussion about who gets that data? Fine. But you don't have enough police officers. And you guys told us, Bruce Harrell's administration, the previous mayor, who was also a failure, told us that because we don't have enough police officers, let's do these cameras. So you do the cameras. Now you're saying no cameras, no police officers, and everything's going to be fine, and everything's not fine. Even before you get to the Bite of Seattle disaster, the disastrous response with that, you have seen things around here get worse. She has become a meme. I mean, how many times is it? I saw a meme today where it was literally Katie Wilson. Somebody had animated it on social media using AI, and it's her dancing to Bye, Bye, Bye. That's what it is. It was hysterical. I was laughing. I think it was our friends over at Future 42. Why? Because everybody knows this quote of hers.
Like, bye.
With regards to these businesses leaving Washington. That's what she says. It's just bye, bye, bye. It's her dancing to that. So, you have that. You have the fact that she's a colossal failure. You have her running away from pressers. And then you have this disastrous response to the Bite of Seattle shooting. So is anybody surprised that her poll rating has gone in the absolute toilet? No, of course not, because nobody thinks she's up to the job. Now, that wasn't the worst part of this presser. Let's get to the rest of it here.
To start a search for our new police chief. So I understand we're in a moment of uncertainty in the city where a lot of people are, wanting to see action, and we're going to be providing that action.
So does that mean Andre Sales? Does that mean Andre Sales is not a full-time candidate? If you say you're starting a search, is Andre Sales part of that search?
Interim Chief Sales is our interim police chief, and we are embarking on a search process, and I do not know yet whether interim Chief Sales will be applying for that process.
Okay, we got to move.
We got to move. They start dragging her away. That's your chance to just walk away. But instead, she keeps responding to questions.
Mayor along here, folks. Yeah. We got time for we got one-on-one interviews with subject matter experts.
Again, I am focused on delivering for the people of Seattle, and that means public safety, and that means transportation, and that means homelessness, and that means affordable housing, and that is the work that I'm focused on.
Okay, we're going to keep walking.
Thank you, everyone.
We got to get the mayor on the schedule.
It's always in people's way.
Okay, now what happens after that is interesting. First of all, I don't recognize these people surrounding the mayor. This giant dude, or maybe he's just normal sized and she's so small. This giant man who's like, we got to give the mayor some space, got to give the mayor some space. Is that the new communications director? I don't know who this dude is. I've never seen this dude before in my life. So what happens is this dude's like, no, we got to go, we got to go. And as she walks away, she gives this look to the camera, to the right past the camera. I don't think she's looking at the camera, but she's looking right past the camera as in, oh, is this over? That was crazy. Get me out of here. And then strips off the vest and strips off the helmet as fast as she possibly can to show it was all performative. If you're on a construction site, you do that when you leave the construction site. They're outside a building. They're not actually in a construction site. The whole thing was performative, and she's running out the door. The media smell blood in the water. They do, because they know she's not up for this. Be nice if they actually looked into any of this stuff, when she was running for office. But hey, better late than never, right? Katie Wilson is not up to this job. She never had a real job beforehand. She was living off her parents' money beforehand and didn't have a real job. We hired the idiot intern to run a city. Well, we didn't. What was it? 25% of Seattle actually showed up for that election? Well, now it looks like that's the only 25% that's actually still sticking with her. Recent polling shows that between 22 and 37%. That's it. Those are her approval ratings. That's it. So on the high side, it's 37. On the low side, it's 22%. But that means no matter how you slice it, over 60% of Seattle says she is not up for the job, and over 60% of Seattle wants her to resign. That's how bad it is, because everybody's got public safety concerns, especially with the homeless flooding back into Seattle. That's how bad it is. That is how bad it is. Now, mind you, are there ways for her to turn this around? Show you're competent. But whoever is running this, her entire staff is leaving, so it's not like the Biden administration, where people would stick around hoping to use the administration for bigger and better things and run their own agenda. I don't recognize any of the people surrounding the mayor. This is a whole new crew she's got on here. So, are they running their own agenda? Is she trying to run the agenda herself? It was interesting as she was leaving and kept turning to answer questions. It's almost like somebody told her, don't ignore the media, because then you have another viral clip. So it looks like she's trying to be the tough girl boss, but it's failing horribly. She has these pre-canned answers that don't even make a lot of sense, that just make her sound like she has no idea what she's talking about. Let's say it was me. Let's say I'm mayor of Seattle, and the poll numbers are cratering. You know what I would say? The only poll that matters is the election. And I think that people will see, once my policies have a chance to work, I think they'll see it works out better for everybody. Or, you know what? Doing the right thing isn't always the popular thing. We're doing the right thing right now. Things like that. Instead, it's, people are worried about public safety. Yeah, what are you going to do to fix that? Any answer she gave opened the door to another question about how she sucks at her job. How is it a month after the Biden of Seattle shooting? Kevin, we've been talking about this for a month now. A month. We still don't have suspects. There's one suspect in custody. There's two potentially in the run. We don't even know who they are. We don't even know where they are. We don't have enough police officers. I had to call 911 last night. They didn't show up for 45 minutes. By the way, some of you are saying, oh, that's good. Last time I called 911, they didn't show up at all. Last time I called 911, it was 4 hours. Last time it was this. Yeah. If I told you the incident, which I'm not going to describe right now, you'd be like, holy cow, it took them 45 minutes to show up for that? Yeah, it was a pretty big deal. It took them 45 minutes to show up. That is how bad things are in this city right now. You don't have enough police officers. You have a mayor who wants to abolish the police. You have a mayor who fired the last police chief, no matter how incompetent he was. She still fired the police chief. And now things are even worse than they were before. But everybody had a taste of success. Everybody had a taste of success where they saw the World Cup, they saw how amazing it was, and it wasn't because of Seattle. It wasn't because of King County. It wasn't because of Washington State. It was because of the feds. We're figuring that out more and more now. It was because of the feds. This one here, text from the 253, Ari, I work for a builder in Pierce County. We have stopped working on projects in King County and Seattle because even though we are in the business every day trying to get permits, we can't get King County, especially to approve anything, more than 3 years out. They hide behind their website, use only emails, never release their phone numbers. You can't get to them. Maybe they don't want to. They're hiring people right now out of Evergreen State College. Wow. If you want to know the worst college in Washington State, it's probably Evergreen State College. You just have children running the show. And I don't care. There are plenty of young, qualified people coming out of college. You think those people want to go into government work? No, they want to make real money. So basically, your choice is between the people coming out of Evergreen State College who majored in lesbian dance theory or underwater basket weaving or something like that, or the people who want to be career politicians for all the wrong reasons. And yet, it seems like this administration is hiring them. The cities are hiring them. What an absolute mess. What an absolute train wreck. Kevin, I think they should give some serious consideration to my application for her press secretary job. I think they should hire me. I think that would be great. Don't you? I wonder why I haven't heard back yet. Why do you think? I got to scratch my head about that one. Why I haven't heard back yet. Hey, that's $300 plus a year. Benefits, pension, a city pension? Well, who knows? The rate they're spending money, it might be gone in a few years. Yeah, I think this could be great. I think this could be great. Yeah, she's never going to do it. You know why? Because they don't hire competent people. They just don't. This one here from Mary says, this is what happened to me in the 80s in Oregon. She was talking about our previous guest who was talking about a child missing. We reported our daughter missing. The sheriff told us that she was in a safe place. We had 6 children, not a lot of money, but she had food, clean clothes, and a family who loved her. She had a friend in foster care. Said her foster parents gave her money and things. Our daughter read a book in the library about how to run away safely. She went to a school counselor. To this day, we don't know what she said to her. DHS took us to court. We lost parental control. She went to a foster program until she turned 18. This isn't new. No, Mary, it's not new. It's just they found new ways of doing it. They just found new ways of doing it. Some people pointed out the irony of us having a story where the Democrats passed the Keeping Families Together Act and then are doing literally everything to try and split families apart. It's crazy. Can you name one thing in Washington State that's being run well? One thing. One thing in Seattle that's being run well by the government? One thing in King County? I can't name a single one. Not one. Katie Wilson's in charge. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. Now we can just sit back and watch the entertainment until somebody dies again. That's the real problem. Lives are at stake when you're talking about public safety. I know some people thought it was funny to say, hey, let's watch what happens. Let's watch the train wreck with Katie Wilson. I said, socialism never ends well for anybody. Never does. I wonder if the city council is actually going to pull the trigger metaphorically, politically, not physically. And I wonder if they're actually going to remove her from office. Do you think Katie Wilson is going to survive politically through her entire term? Give us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, Chuck Schumer proves just how terrified he is of the far, far left. Said one of the craziest things. And Chuck Schumer, that's saying something. Tell you what it was when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up between 6 and 7 is the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded, in case you missed any part of today's program. It's brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. Chuck Schumer is officially embracing Abdul Rahman El Sayed. So let me make sure I got this right. The guy who claims he's the defender of the Jewish people is now supporting a radical anti-Semite terrorist supporter whose family has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, whose mother was actually working for an organization that was funneling money to Osama bin Laden. Just making sure we got all that right. Okay? With friends like this, who needs Hamas? Here's what Chuck Schumer said about Abdul Rahman.
Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, El Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself.
Yeah, you know, that guy with the funny mustache really brought in new energy to Germany. He brought it in. It was great. We're going to embrace it. Chuck Schumer, we have a word for you. Capo. Capos were the Jews who used to turn in the other Jews to save their own skins during the Holocaust. You might know one of them, George Soros. That's Chuck Schumer. That's Chuck Schumer. He is so desperate to save his own skin and keep his own seat that he is literally embracing the guy with ties to terror. That guy. The guy who supports terror. The guy who makes excuses for people who drive into a synagogue daycare and shoot it up. And here's something else. This is not earning him points with these people. Far-left Democrats continue to want to oust Schumer. Florida Democrat Angie Nixon said she would not support Chuck Schumer as Democrat leader. El Sayed said he would oust Chuck Schumer. Gee, I wonder why he's kissing his butt. Troy Jackson dodged when he was asked whether he would support Chuck Schumer. Josh Turek refused to say if he would support Chuck Schumer. Minnesota Senator Tina Smith doesn't want to answer the question about Chuck Schumer. Chris Van Hollen from Maryland refused to say if he thinks Chuck Leader should be the leader of his party. Massachusetts Representative Seth Moulton said he would not support Chuck Schumer as Democrat leader if he was elected to the Senate. Ro Khanna said Chuck Schumer needs to move aside. Brad Lander said he would not support Chuck Schumer. Gee, I wonder why Chuck Schumer all of a sudden talking about how great the progressives are. Because he is worried about them getting rid of him. That's what it is. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have allowed their party to be taken over by socialist extremists. We know this. It's so bad. Even CNN is calling out these socialists when they come on the show talking about how great Cuba is. One of their anchors is actually Cuban. So when one of these socialists tried it on CNN, I was impressed. The CNN anchor completely shut him down.
I get your criticism of foreign policy. As I said, it's not an uncommon one. But lauding Fidel Castro is a different story. You talk about what things were like before the revolution in Cuba. I'll give you a personal example. My grandfather was a revolutionary in Cuba during that time. He was affected by a previous dictator, Fulgencio Batista, having his friends disappeared in the street for speaking their minds. My grandfather found that revolution, hoping to bring democracy to Cuba. And then what happened? Fidel Castro locked my grandfather up, sentenced to 20 years for doing what you're doing now on live TV, for speaking his mind, for expressing himself freely, for trying to organize politically. So I wonder, again, how you think that lands with people who suffered under that dictatorship, who now you are trying to court as voters when your organization comes out and lauds 100 years of Castro. I don't think it would land well with them, Ashik.
We're seeing many people in the United States who are seeing who are struggling under massive inequality in the United States.
Well, hang on. So the guy just hit you with the facts of communism under Cuba, which you guys talk about how wonderful Cuba was all the time. Oh, we think people are unequal here in the United States. They don't build rafts to flee the United States. They don't take 57 Chevys and turn them into boats. They don't take buses and turn them into boats to flee the United States. You guys want to talk about how great Cuba is? Have you spent a lot of time talking to these people?
Have you spent much time speaking to Cubans who have fled the island because of political persecution, who endured years under the Castro regime, Ashik?
I know plenty of people who are, especially second and third generation Cubans, who are finding things out for themselves and wanting to open up more open communication, open exchange with Cubans. And
have you spoken to people that were politically persecuted? Have you spoken to people who were politically persecuted by the Castro regime, who fled that island because of it?
I have. And there are people who, whatever critiques they might have of the Cuban government, they don't think that an economic blockade and military intervention is the way to do it.
Okay, that's two different things. That's two different things. You want to discuss the blockade? You want to discuss what we're doing to Cuba? Fine. But you guys are holding up as an example of what a country could be. You want people being persecuted here? The truth is the socialists probably do want people being persecuted here. That's probably exactly what they do want. That's probably exactly what it is. They want to emulate this. Oh, I saw a picture of Che Guevara on a wall. Communism's cool. I like that hammer and sickle. It's edgy. Communism's cool. The entire party is captured. The entire party is captured. And they're just going more and more to the left. Ro Khanna, who's already on the left, is saying we should embrace Hassan Piker. This is what he said during a recent interview.
Your comment on Hassan Piker, what should the Democrats do with him? Should they abandon him? Do you renounce your support of him? You tell me, Ro. Give it to me straight.
It's absurd. I mean, these are the same people who were at one point criticizing Democrats for going on Joe Rogan. I mean, remember when Bernie went on Joe Rogan? The people who said, "Oh, you can't go on Joe Rogan." These are the same folks who criticized me when I went on Ben Shapiro. Should I not go on Ben Shapiro's podcast? Because I disagree with him. We had a whole argument on the minimum wage.
Okay, stop right there. You're comparing Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan to Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker, who supports terrorism. Hassan Piker said America deserved 9/11. That's the comparison you're making? Are you serious about this? Are you kidding me with this nonsense? They are so desperate to hold on to power because one day Ro Khanna is not going to be left enough for these guys. This guy is bragging about being the first one to endorse El Sayed, a guy who supports terror.
There's another progressive who's not a democratic socialist, Abdullah Said. He actually agrees with what you just said and also for abolish ICE. He just got outspent 10-1, $63 million. And Michiganders said, you know what? We like him over Haley Stevens, who's an elected official.
I was his first endorser. Along with Bernie Sanders. I think I was the first in the House to endorse it. When people gave him no shot is when I endorsed it.
They're falling all over themselves to talk about how wonderful this guy is, right? Just wonderful, just fantastic. It's worse than that. The entire party's now quoting this guy. Here's Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin quoting El Sayed.
Every Democrat I know believes that we should get money out of politics and we should put more money into people's pockets, that we should raise the minimum wage and we should work for universal health care.
Universal health care. Sure, let's do it. In fact, let's abolish the police and borders and everything else.
First, thank you for having me on, Laura. Democrats are unified. We are united, and we're through most of these primaries now, so it's no longer Democrat on Democrat violence. Right now, everyone is focused on the November election.
Do you think they're really united, though, Ken? I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, the DSA, so you're saying that all the Democrats and the DSA candidates, they're all united?
Let me say, we are a Big Tent party. We always have been. As you've heard me say before, we have moderate Democrats, we have conservative Democrats, we have progressives, we have leftists. And the key is to make sure that despite all the labels that people throw around and the divisions within our party, there's more that unites us as Democrats than those small differences.
Is it the jihadism? Is that what unites you? Is it the support for terror? Is it the hatred for America? What exactly unites you in the Democrat Party? Unbelievable. The entire party's gone. You didn't leave the Democrat Party, my friends. The Democrat Party left you. Up next, Lars will be unleashed. And this latest insanity. You think things are bad with Seattle trying to build something. What happens when you try to build something in Portland and then the city says they want to be involved in your project? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. There is a giant hole in the ground on 4th Avenue in downtown Seattle. It has been there for as long as I've lived in Seattle, and I've lived here for 22, 23 years now, and it's literally right across the street from City Hall. I cannot think of a more apt analogy for the fact that government can't get anything done than the pit. And those of you who are fans of the TV show Parks and Rec know exactly what I'm talking about with a giant pit that the city can't do anything about. But our friend Lars Larson apparently has something even better, where there's a building in Portland that is now a pit because the city decided to get involved and blow it up. Lars, what's going on?
Okay, so let me take you back about a month, only about a month. And I have a man on. He makes his home in Vancouver, but he's a developer, and he's been doing this for a long time. And he had an idea a couple of years ago. He went to the city of Portland. And he said, "You have this building, and I want to develop it. It's been vacant for a couple of decades, and it's not being used." It was called Centennial Mills. It's a giant warehouse that had flour operation in it. It's been there for over 100 years. And so he, a couple of years ago, began saying, "I'm going to put a restaurant in there. I'm going to have a bar and a nightclub." It's sitting right on the edge of the Willamette River in what's called the Pearl District, which is one of the high-end, expensive districts downtown. And the city has put a lot of time and money and effort into that whole district. So for 2 years, he tries to get this development done. And every time he gets close, the city keeps throwing up roadblocks. Well, you've got to do this and you got to do that. And a lot of it is just ridiculous, the usual garbage that government throws in the way. Now, so about a month ago, we had him on, and he talked about how he's decided to just walk away. He says the city red taped this to death, and they killed the whole idea. It would have been jobs. It would have been economic activity. It would have been preserving the building and protecting it from squatters and the homeless and everything else. So he gives up. He's on this show about a month ago. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was the 6th of August, the building catches fire. And it's like an 8 or 10 story building, and it has a giant water tower on top, and it's sitting, like I said, right on the waterfront. And the entire interior of the building burns. All the floors inside burn. So it's now these shaky masonry walls going up 8 or 10 stories with a giant metal water tank on top that's the size of a house. And they ended up having to blow it up on Monday. They blew up the water tank, and then they said it might take a couple of weeks to take the building down. Once they blew up the water tank on top, they came up with an excavator and just pushed on the walls, and the whole thing just fell in on itself. So let me take you back a quarter of a century to 2000. City of Portland buys this property and the building for almost $8 million, $7.7 million. And they say, "We're going to develop it." And then they sat on it for the next 24 years and got nothing done. The city spent over $16 million on preservation, keeping people out of the building, all the rest of this. They just poured money into this thing without accomplishing anything. And then 2 years ago, they sold it to some private owners who then were going to make a deal with this developer. But every time he got close, James Casper was told there's one more requirement, there's one more piece of red tape. So he walks away. About a month ago, it burns about 2 weeks ago. They blew it up on Monday. Now, they have poured money into this thing, and it's one of my complaints over the last several decades that governments, especially governments like Portland and Seattle, they always say, if there's going to be a development, the city must be involved or the county must be involved. And oftentimes they'll buy the property out from under the private sector. So then they can say, you can only develop it if you do it the way we tell you to do it, which usually makes no financial sense at all. They put up requirements and everything else. So an entity that knows nothing about a business has now decided to be in the business because they have the unlimited checkbook from the taxpayers.
This reminds me of the hotel. I think it was a Red Lion Hotel that King County bought, and it was infested with meth. They bought it for the homeless, but worse than that, it's in the path of the light rail, so it's going to have to be torn down anyway. And they spent triple the price. It's out in Federal Way. They spent triple the price on this meth-infested hotel for the homeless. And even though it was going to be torn down because the train's going to be going through it.
Now, isn't that crazy? They find the most creative ways to destroy properties, to destroy potential development. And if there's anything Portland needs right now, and I think Seattle's in the same boat, is they need some good news because commercial real estate in downtown Portland is off 70%, 70%. So imagine if 10 years ago, the property and the value of all the commercial properties in downtown Portland was worth X. It is now worth 30% of X today. And Seattle, I think, is in the same boat. Isn't commercial real estate in the tank?
Yes, Seattle's office rate, we are up to somewhere between 35 and 37% office vacancy in downtown Seattle, which I believe is the highest in the U.S. They've lost billions of dollars in value. And now that the World Cup is over, Lars, I don't know how much you've talked about this. When I drive to KVI, when I drive to the studio, tents are everywhere. It's like the homeless said, you kept us out. We're going to come back and we're going to bring our friends. It is worse now than it was before the World Cup.
And the point of the World Cup was city government was capable of fixing things up for the right reason. Now, would they fix up a city and clean up a city for the citizens who actually pay the taxes? No. Will they clean it up for an event so that they don't end up with egg on their faces? Yes. So it's like having, somebody in your household, whether it's the husband or the wife, who never wants to participate in cleaning the house until Aunt Tilly comes over or mom comes over or whatever. Dad is coming. If dad's coming over, this house better be spick and span. Otherwise, I don't care. You can leave garbage all over the house until this special person is coming to visit.
I don't know anybody who's like that at all, Lars. I can't imagine anybody who does that kind of stuff, especially living around the corner from their in-laws. Lars, appreciate you joining us today, buddy. You can catch Lars Larson Show every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
And you as well. Take care, buddy.
Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode, another amazing week of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And just a reminder, coming up from 6 to 7 is the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded, brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. Well, this one here, 2 NFL committees have unanimously recommended approval of the proposed sale of the Seattle Seahawks to a group led by the Coleslaw family. Is that what we're calling them now, the Coleslaws? I don't know how to pronounce it yet. I'm sure we'll all learn eventually. Moving the transaction closer to a vote by the league owners. The NFL's Finance and Ownership Policy Committees reviewed the transaction Wednesday, recommended that all 32 clubs approve the deal at a special league meeting next Wednesday in Atlanta, according to an NFL spokesman. So this is going to be a big news story next week. I assume there's not going to be much other news happening next week. So this will be a big news story coming up next week. 3/4 of the NFL clubs must vote in favor for the transaction to be approved. The committees are made up of team owners, while the league office does not have a vote. Unanimous recommendation is a strong indication the transaction is moving forward as expected, said Natalie Welch, Ph.D., the director of Seattle University MBA in Sports and Entertainment Management program. The deal also reflects the growing value of professional sports franchises, particularly NFL teams, as broadcasting and streaming companies increasingly compete for sports rights. Welch also pointed to the Seahawks' success on and off the field as contributing to the franchise's value. Looking ahead, she said that Seattle's hosting of the World Cup reinforced the value of Lumen Field's location, reduced concerns about the Seahawks potentially leaving the city. She says, I definitely don't see the Seahawks moving out of Seattle anytime soon. I got a question for all of you. Are you worried about that? Me personally, I don't think they're actually going to move because with regards to the Seahawks, they're the only team for multiple states and British Columbia in any direction. I don't really think they're going anywhere. That would be my guess. But if you disagree with me, give me a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Here's another one. This one here from Como News. For the first time in 15 years of life, Marquez Reed is playing two-handed catch. So far, so good, his occupational therapist said. Good adjustment. Nice. The encouragement is from Eva Ma at Shriners Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon, who is helping Marquez adjust to life with a prosthetic arm. He was born with just a portion of his left arm. The journey to his new prosthesis started in a classroom in North Kitsap High School at a holiday campaign where students can ask for a gift. A lot of people ask for a Monster energy drink or a bag of chips, he said, but Marquez's friends asked for an arm. We were like, we need to get this kid what he wants. The fundraising grew, and the school in the Poulsbo community and beyond raised $15,000. In June, Marquez debuted his sleek black bionic prosthesis, known as the Hero Arm, at the end of the school year assembly. And now the hard work is underway. The two-handed catch is the warm-up activity. When we started, I couldn't catch at all, he said. As we went through the process, I started getting the hang of it. After doing everything one-handed, Marquez is learning how to coordinate movement on both sides of his body. We call in the technical terms bilateral coordination or using two hands for manual use, Ma said. So that's another part he has to organize with his brain to have the motor output, and that's also a challenge. Marquez can control the arm with an app and has muscle control. He demonstrated both using his phone to make the arm and hand move. He also explained how flexing different muscles in his upper arm will control movements. His mother is embracing the challenges. Quote, he's just willing to jump in and try new things. It's been a lot of fun to watch. The new arm will help Marquez learn to drive, change how he plays sports, but first, tasks at home, like setting the table and taking out the garbage. Of course, parents say, if you want that new arm, you got to set the table and you got to take out the garbage, right? That's what's happening. Marquez is also a patient ambassador for Shriners Hospital. It's one of the ways the family gives back after receiving so much support. The thing is really cool looking, actually. Soon enough, he might become a supervillain. You know, like that Winter Soldier guy. All of a sudden, he's taking on Captain America. All of a sudden, he's becoming an assassin. It starts nice with somebody giving you a bionic arm, and look where it ends.
I was going to say, you went to villain in the good news segment?
Well, sorry, dude.
Winter Soldier ends up being a good guy.
Well, he does later. And a member of Congress. Wait, is that still a good guy?
Yeah. Why don't we skip the bad guy part for this?
Okay,
this fella.
Fine. Iron Man, it's ish, kind of. You got anybody else on our side who's got the Bionic Man?
Maybe he'll be the first.
There you go. The $6 million man, RoboCop. Any of those things? Darth Vader? No, I mean, it's a pretty cool looking thing. It really is. Actually, there's this really sweet video. It came out years ago. I think when Avengers was just coming out, where there was this little kid. He's like 5 or 6 years old. And Robert Downey Jr. showed up to give the kid a bionic arm, and it was all Iron Man tricked out. Like, it looked the same way. It did all the same things. It lit up at the end the exact same way. Pretty cool stuff. And then the story which just won't go away, Pizza Hut's rebrand. Coming back some more.
More on this?
There's more of this, yes. Because now, of course, Dave Portnoy has to weigh in, right? The guy who does the one pizza bite deal. You know this whole thing?
Yeah, of course. And it went kind of viral where he'll just show up at a place and go, give me your pizza. He takes a bite and then he gives it. I think he's biased though, because it's always that New York style. It's like, oh, look, it's got a. Well, it's supposed to have enough firmness, but not. It can't be too floppy, and it can't be. And then he's always like, it's always just like a cheese pizza that he's like, oh, this is a 10 or whatever. It's
it's basically,
it looks fine.
You're right. If you're going for it, he's clearly looking for New York pizza outside of New York.
Yeah,
that is clearly.
I'm giving a hard time. Yeah. It's like, and he's kind of. I don't know how consistent he is. Sometimes I'm like, you just like giving a hand to this poor little hole in the wall. It's probably not that good.
Well, I'll say this. I have had great pizza. I've had good pizza. Bad pizza is rare, but it does happen. There are some places that their pizza is just terrible, awful. The ones where the rubbery crust at the bottom tastes like it came out of a microwave, but it just came out of the oven.
Or the sauce is really sweet. It's like, what are you doing? Okay, so what does he have to say?
Well, anyway,
about this?
what he's saying is they're talking about the rebrand of the Pizza Hut. So what they're talking about is all this marketing they're doing behind the rebrand, trying to get people back there for this thing, right? So what rebrand is? It's not the retro thing. It's the Hut. So they're just calling it the Hut. Now, to be honest with you, do I really care? I mean, for years, KFC has been Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's just KFC. It's just FedEx. It's just whatever. So we're abbreviating the thing for the Hut? Okay, I don't really care. Personally, it seems like people don't care because they still know it's Pizza Hut. They know where you're going to. It's always been some comments about the Hut. This is nothing new, really. We're just going along with this, but this is the new thing. It's going to be the Hut officially for the next 25 weeks. The promotion is tied into NFL football, which I think this is a nothing burger. I'd rather be talking about the retro designs. And are they bringing back the arcade games as part of the retro designs?
I did see that they have a retro menu right now. Mm-hmm. So they have the old personal pan pizza that I used to always get from Book It Club.
Yeah.
You read so many books, and you get a coupon.
And you get your pizza.
You didn't really have to prove you read that many books.
Was it on that conveyor belt thing when you got it? Is that how they make the pizza?
I don't know how they did it in the 80s in the back, but probably.
Okay.
And it was delicious.
The one in Israel, that sucker was right out front, so you could be like, oh, look how cool that is. Yeah, you saw the machine right there.
How cool that actually is, because it's like real pizza should be cooked in a proper brick oven.
Right, on the brick oven. Exactly right.
But loved it when I was a kid.
Do you know what I saw? I was at Lowe's the other day picking up appliances. Lowe's now has for your barbecue the pizza inserts that go into your barbecue, perfectly designed for your Weber grill. I'm thinking to myself, that looks awesome. I should look into that this weekend. That's going to do it for us this week, my friends, but fear not, we'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.